Hey, and welcome back to OntarioCyrptids. Today we have 3 creepy encounter stories that I found on Reddit. I did get permissions from all 3 individuals to share their stories here on this channel. I also got permission to share the photos which were uploaded that accompanies these encounters. In most of these cases, the individuals are looking to determine what these creatures are, and that's where you guys can weigh in. Now, before we get started, if you're enjoying these encounter stories, then hit that like button and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Thanks to all who have previously subscribed. Love your show of support. Okay, I'll let you guys be the judge if these 3 stories are creepy. So, guys and gals, go get ready and grab your favorite beverage and snack and sit back and relax. Okay, so this first story takes place somewhere in northwest Georgia, and going by when this was posted, it happened in May of 2020. So that is my approximation based on when this story was posted on Reddit. Okay, so this first story isn't very long, but I found it fascinating given that they have pictures of the creature, and the girl actually did a drawing, which I'm also going to post right at the end of this story here. So let's get right into what's been going on here. So it starts off saying, my girlfriend's 13-year-old sister just casually mentioned that she's been seeing a creature in the woods outside the house the last few weeks. She says it runs alongside the car and she sees it out her bedroom window at night. She's apparently seen it around 7 or 8 times. She told her mom and grandparents, and they've literally laughed it off. She snapped a picture of it and waited 2 days to tell anyone. She posted it on Facebook, and every single person shrugged it off as a tree, even though she said she only took a pic because she could see it trying to hide. She's a really smart girl, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt and told her to send me a picture at the same angle at the same time of day the following day. Here are both photos side by side. Look behind the thicker dark tree. The thing is not there in the second image. It had just rained in the first image, and she said that her hands were shaking from being scared, so it's unfortunately not the clearest image. She said it walked on all 4s. You can see its legs, arms on the left side of the tree, and its face peering out on the right. She's a really good artist, so I asked her to draw a picture of what she's been seeing. She said she'd already drawn it a week ago and sent me this photo. We have managed to convince my girlfriend's mom to put out trail cams and order 2 more, so hopefully we can verify its existence. So this has been going on, I guess, for some time, and there has been an update to his posting where he says, we haven't seen the creature in at least a month now, so I think whatever it was has moved on. If anything new comes up, I'll make a new post about it. So there you have it, guys. Now, one thing I do want to add on to here, and I'm going to add it right now, is this picture right here. So this was also sent in, which shows or circle where the creature is behind a tree if you weren't able to see it for the first time. I don't know about you, but this looks very interesting to me, and I don't know, it looks like there is something hidden behind this tree. Now, the only other thing I want to add is I have found a video on YouTube where a bunch of campers are out there I believe they have a bonfire or something in front of them, and you can see in the background, you can see a crawler moving from behind a tree to the darkness. Now, I will add a link down below in the description of this video, so you can go and take a look at that YouTube video. It's interesting. I don't know though if it is real or fake, but you can be the judge of that. So on to the next story. Okay, so this next story takes place in Virginia. Now, Virginia, if you take a look, is a very green area. It's got a lot of forest. Appalachian Mountain goes through there, and there is a lot of farmland. But let's get into the story now. This happened when I was 14. For a little bit of background, this takes place at my grandparents' house. They live in Virginia in a forest by a large river in a loose community. There are about 3 roads in the community, one of which has about 15 houses on it. A short road that leads to some wetlands that smells terrible. And then there's a long road that leads down to the river that has 3 large houses. That's the road my grandma lives on. Her house is by the water, but on the other side of the house, across the gravel road, is her garage. This garage is about 100 to 200 feet back from the road and looks more like a large house rather than a garage. It is nestled against a tree line of the forest. When this happened, I was with my siblings along with my cousins. It was dark and someone had the amazing idea of playing manhunt. The borders were set to the land which my grandparents owned, which include the garage. One of my cousins and I decided it would be best to stick together so we could split up if someone found us. We crawled onto some bushes by the road and waited. Not long after we settled down, I started getting a feeling. It was very soft at first, just a tugging sensation in the back of my mind. Something was off. I slowly started to pay more and more attention to the noises around me. Everything sounded normal. By normal, I mean the cicadas were buzzing so loudly that I could hardly hear anything else. Still, there was the feeling that I needed to move. At this point, I suggested that we were too close to the road and maybe we should change spots. We crawled out from the bushes and moved across the gravel road, making a wide arc around the garage to prevent the motion lights from going off and showing my sister, who was hunting us, where we were. When I stepped out onto the field that the garage is on, I became aware of something on the other side of us. I couldn't tell what, but I had something's attention. It wasn't the feeling of being watched, but more like knowing that something was out there and it knew that I was here, but I didn't know where it was exactly. I downplayed it and thought it might have been my brother, as he likes to sneak up on people. Besides me, my cousin often gets feelings that things are watching us, and if I brought it up, she would only freak out. So my cousin and I head for the tree line next to the garage. Now the ground behind the tree line slopes down suddenly at what I would say is a steep angle for about 3 feet before flattening out. Kind of like if you Google forest roads and look at how it juts off the side and the ground slopes down suddenly. We laid on our stomachs and watched the road from our new hiding spot just inside the forest. I noticed after a while things were quieter. I thought back for a second and I was listening to my gut for a minute. How could I not? It practically screamed at me to get up and run. I knew that something was definitely watching me. I decided just to lay there perfectly still and observe my surroundings. It was dark and I could only see the barn in the field. I had no chance of seeing anything in the forest due to the leaves blocking most of the moonlight. It seemed very quiet and very wrong. I noticed the cicadas had stopped buzzing. I couldn't even hear the crickets. It got so quiet, I hear ringing in my ears, and the only noise I could hear was the light crunching of leaves under my cousin's stomach as she breathed. By this point, she was looking around, clearly frightened. When I slowly looked up at her, I could tell that she had the same feeling of dread, the feeling that something was waiting and it was just about to do something. When she opened her mouth to say something, we both heard a sudden cracking noise behind us, and both of us decided we didn't want to die. I never ran faster in my life. The motion lights from the garage turned on, and I could see the shadow of something behind us. We ran to where our grandparents' driveway starts, as it was much brighter. I looked back to see if my cousin was behind me and almost tripped over my own feet. I could only see its silhouette. It was, at my guess, 7, maybe 8 feet tall. Its arms were too long and its chest was thicker than it should be. Its head was human, but also not human. The shape of it was wrong. It had 2 yellow eyes that locked onto my frozen figure. It turned its head slightly and watched me while I stared at it. My cousin wasn't going to let me stand there and die, so she started pulling me back to the house, screaming at me. The thing across the street then turned its head to the side as if it was watching for a car to come down the gravel road. It looked like its face had skin, but not the areas around its lips or teeth. Think of the area around your cheeks or lips being bitten off. The flesh around there was gone. Its teeth were something else. One of the things that was wrong with it was its face was simply too big. Its teeth were huge and they stuck out a bit from its face. I got the feeling it was showing me this to taunt me, as if to say, "Want to stick around and find out more?" No, I did not, and after figuring out the whole big sharp teeth thing, I was happy to run to the porch and hide with my cousin. We hid there for half an hour. We only came out after someone suggested that maybe we hid across the street, and I was not okay with one of my family members possibly running into that thing again. While my cousin and I were hiding, we talked about how no one would believe us and how if someone did believe us, then it would be our grandmother, who would probably then try to find it. Both of us agreed not to tell our family. When it's dark at my grandmother's house, my cousin no longer goes outside and stays in the house. I don't stray far from the light of the house, and I don't go near any bushes. When I'm inside, I make sure all the windows are shut and locked. If I'm feeling brave, I'll sit at the end of the pier with my feet in the water looking back at the house, never with my back to the shore. While I'm outside, and sometimes when I stand near windows with the curtains or shades open, I get the feeling it's watching me from the dark place where it lurks. I'm curious as to what this thing was. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a skinwalker because Virginia isn't exactly close to any Navajo reservations. I have drawn a picture of this creature, and if people are curious, I can share it with you. This is another fantastic story, and I do have to say, I have seen the picture, and it resembles the picture of the first encounter story that we just listened to. So the pictures are pretty much spot on. All right, now for the last story of the day. All right, everybody, here is the last story of the day. This one takes place in West Virginia back in 2018. To preface this, I should note that my partner is part Native. His mother is half Native, and his father is a direct descendant of an important tribe member. I have no idea what my heritage is, and I've never even cared enough to investigate. What I'm saying is I have no culture, and I don't want to talk too much about my partner's heritage because I wouldn't do it justice. Though honestly, neither would he, as he and his sister were never part of a res community, and I'm pretty sure their whole immediate family has been separated from it for a while. However, this story has a lot to do with his heritage, and if you're scrolling down this tag, I don't need to go into too much detail about the creature we saw for you to get it. What I will go into detail about is what we saw, what happened, and how we got away. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what we were going out for that night. It might have been cigarettes, or maybe we were craving fast food. But it was nearly 2 years ago now, so why exactly we ended up where we did isn't clear in my memory anymore. It was really late at night, and I want to say maybe midnight or a little later. We left our apartment and drove down the back roads that led to town. Our apartment is stuck pretty high up on the hills in the woods. This is backwoods West Virginia, so take that as you will. And there are 3 windy dirt roads next to a huge creek system that you have to go down to get onto the main road. This will be important later. The drive started out normal enough. We weren't really talking or listening to music, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. At this point, we had been together for 3 years, and sometimes you just don't have much to talk about. I started playing on my phone. I think I was looking at Facebook, but I'm not sure. I heard what I thought was my partner whispering, but he had a habit of mumbling thoughts that he can't keep in his head. Stupid things like a response he should have had earlier in the day, so I didn't think anything of it. I kept hearing it though, and it sounded like the same thing over and over. Obviously, that worried me because at that point it isn't a habit, it's a mental health crisis, so I turned to look at him. At that moment, everything sort of stopped, and I can't really explain what I saw. But think of it like a black shadow that doesn't have a form. It's ambiguous, but despite that, you know it's a humanoid, and you can almost make out the body and features if you try. That's what I saw, quick as a flash, through the driver's side window. As soon as I saw it, I went to say something, and my boyfriend slammed on the brakes. This next part is a little hazy, but I remember he couldn't seem to formulate a thought for a few minutes. He just kept gaping his mouth open at me while I asked him what was wrong. There wasn't anything in front of us, and I kept asking him why he had slammed on the brakes. Finally, he said something to the effects of, "All these lights are distracting me. I thought I just saw a Grim Reaper crossing the road." I'm sure he said it more elegantly and was significantly less nonchalant than that, but that's the best phrase I have. Sure enough, as I looked around the creek bank on the driver's side and the rock face on the passenger side, it actually looked like it was sparkling. Like even though it was in the middle of the night, it looked like someone had covered the grass and water with glitters and shined a huge spotlight on it. My partner said it was like that the whole time until he finally stopped. But like I said, I was playing on my phone and didn't notice until he did stop. I'm not sure how long we sat there, but the next thing we both agreed with, remembering, is wanting to get out of the car. Like really, really wanting to get out of the car. I think at one point I even rolled down my window just to be a little closer to that glittering hillside. The whispering hadn't stopped, and I didn't think much about it until later, but my partner has since told me he wasn't making any sounds at all, and that he heard it too. It wasn't words, really, either. It was, but it wasn't. At the time, we were staring in a trance. We both knew what was being said, and we know that now, but it just sounds like noise in my head when I think about it now. Like I said earlier, time was lost to us, and I don't know what would have happened if we would have gotten out. But my partner said that he knew in his gut to stay in the car and that he had to keep driving. So that's what we did. This all happened near the end of the second road, and by the time we got to the main road, we had finally calmed down enough to talk about it. My partner told me that he could see the same shadowy creature I did the entire time, but he had a feeling in his gut that if he talked or told me that something bad would happen. He said he just kept looking forward and driving until we came to the section of the road we finally stopped on. Apparently, he didn't want to stop, but to him, the weird lights on the hillside were so bright they were blinding, and when he could see again, it looked like there was a skinny, hooded man standing in the middle of the road. He said when he finally did stop, he couldn't talk to me because the man was watching him and stretched out across the road in front of us and off into the woods. To this day, we don't know what it was, but if it was what we think it was, then I'm glad that something deep inside of him just kept telling him to pretend it was fine. Wow, I don't know what to say, but these 3 stories were very creepy. This last one, I could almost picture it in my mind. Well, I enjoyed sharing these 3 stories with you today. I can't wait to hear your comments and your thoughts regarding these stories. If you have had similar encounters that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. And remember, your stories can be as anonymous as you would like. I'd love to hear from you soon. Bye for now, and we'll see you all next week.